Hey everybody, it's me Briggs. Hello. It's been quite a while since I last spoke to you, I suppose. It's been a good month, if not more. Um, so yeah, it's been an interesting last few weeks. The main talking point is obviously, if some of you don't know, I was in hospital for for a week, of which I found quite difficult. I will talk about that now as well. So, if any of you are interested, then here's the story. I suppose here's the very interesting story. So, about 3 weeks ago, I was at work. I was having a decent day, a little tired, but generally, generally fine, not a problem. And all of a sudden, I get a really sharp, kind of unpleasant pain in my chest, right in the centre, right just where the ribs meet at the bottom, just above your diaphragm. That pain got worse and worse, and I started to feel nauseous, and I started to feel lightheaded and faint and all that kind of stuff. And within a couple of minutes, I was on the floor and I was retching, essentially, or trying to vomit. And after a short period of time, I started to vomit blood up, and it wasn't long before an ambulance was called and I was taken to hospital. It was initially thought that I had some form of bleed in my stomach, which was what happened a couple of years ago. And after an endoscopy, it proved that it wasn't. So I had a CT scan, which came up with the culprit. Now the culprit was, I refer to it because I have it to hand, a splenic artery aneurysm, which didn't burst, but it leaked. It leaked blood into my remnant stomach, which is the stomach which I used to have before it was cut off for the bypass that I had. So that stomach is still there. It's still looped into the digestive system. And what happened is the aneurysm leaked. Blood went straight into that part of my stomach, and when I started to retch, it took a while for the blood to go from the stomach up into my other stomach, the new stomach, and out the top. That was the Wednesday. That was Wednesday about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks tomorrow, essentially. If this goes out on today, Tuesday, that I'm recording this. And I had a bad day Wednesday, as you may have guessed by the fact that I nearly died. So I had the episode of retching. They gave me an anti-sickness while I was in the ambulance, which stopped me from, but I was still losing blood. It was still pooling in my remnant, so essentially I was losing blood. They did an endoscopy to find out, and that didn't bring up anything. So I had a general for that because I was in a bit of a bad way. Before that, I should really have put this in order because it's not in any chronological order. Let's do it chronologically. I got to the hospital. They gave me morphine for the pain. The morphine dropped my blood pressure really low because I suffer from low blood pressure in general. They knew this. For some reason, they decided to give me morphine anyway. I was happy because it did subside the pain that I was in, but it made me feel really, really ill again, like really sicky ill because of the blood pressure. They moved me into resus because I think I was showing signs that things weren't great, and it proved they were very correct in doing so because within about half an hour of being in resus, I crashed. Essentially, I crashed on the bed. It's quite funny how it came about because I was desperate for a wee. I couldn't get up because my blood pressure was forcing me to lay flat. So I couldn't get up and I couldn't go to the toilet normally. I had to have one of those horrible cardboard things. So I was, trying to force myself to have a wee, and by forcing myself to have a wee, I must have done something. I must have forced it too much, and by using that, that, which I can't actually do now because I'm still in a little bit of pain from it, but I did it to try and get wee out, and unfortunately it made me completely crash. And when I say crash, I mean CPR was involved, and death nearly happened. Let's just put it that way. After which, a lot of it's a blur for me, and I'm taking it from people who were there, i.e. my girlfriend and my parents, who were very lucky. I was very lucky were there by the time this happened. They were all there. So this is their story from now on, really, until like Wednesday or Thursday. Thursday morning. I had an endoscopy under general anaesthetic because I was in a really bad way. They didn't find anything, so they decided, well, something's happening, something really bad is happening, so we'll have a CT scan. So I went to a CT scan, probably late evening. We're talking about 10 o'clock-ish, I think, and that showed the aneurysm. The aneurysm was in between. It was on the artery that leads to the spleen, which is, underneath my diaphragm somewhere. I don't know exactly. I should really know these things considering how much it happened. So after the CT scan showing the issue, they rushed a radiographer in, and they did what is called an intervention, which they used these little metal coils to essentially close the artery before the aneurysm. The problem with that is you shut blood off the main artery stream to the spleen, which isn't particularly good. So Thursday, after the intervention, which happened very early Thursday morning, about 1:30ish, 2 o'clock, something like that, I was on the ward by about 4ish. I didn't sleep a wink. I was in a lot of pain, and then because of the way that the blood was pooling in the remnant of my stomach, I was then ejecting the blood in the other way. The problem is I couldn't get up to go to the toilet because of the amount of pain that I was in. I was in horrendous pain from the intervention because of the way that the blood was having to travel the different ways, and it was causing me all kinds of chest pains and all that sort of stuff. So, without going into too many details, I was having to use the bathroom in bed, and it was horrendous. Let's just put it that way. It was horrendous. Thursday morning, I would not want to repeat ever again, because it was horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Thursday progressed. I was under painkillers and such. Friday, I started recovering, and I started to feel better, and I wasn't producing any more blood, which meant that the blood was out of my system. Through this period, from Wednesday evening to Friday, I was receiving blood. So I'd had quite a few units of blood to replace the blood that I lost. And on Friday, they decided to move me from the Royal Surrey, where I was at, to St. Peter's in Chertsey, because they had a bariatric unit and they had a vascular unit, and it made sense because a lot of the stuff that was happening in my body, the Royal Surrey, they were only emergency based. They weren't, specific. So they moved me over to St. Peter's in Chertsey, Ashford and St. Peter's. Brilliant hospital, can't thank them enough for what they did. They isolated me because of the move, which allowed me to sleep really well, so I was in my own little room, and everything progressed fine, and I was released 2 weeks ago tomorrow. So I was in hospital for a week, and I've been out 2 weeks now, and my recovery is slow, but it's getting there. I'm finding more and more energy every day. I think more than anything, the general anaesthetic has knackered me out a bit. And generally, I'm in a better place where I was 3 weeks ago. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, that happened. When I had the intervention, I was awake for a lot of it. Him actually doing the work. And he was talking to me about the rarity of an aneurysm in someone young, and the place in which it was found, and the size of it, and the luckiness that that I was alive still, essentially, is what he said. Because if it had burst, then he said, this was his words, and I'm not over exaggerating or making it even more dramatic than it was. He said I would have bled out in 2 minutes. That's what he said. It bears not thinking about. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, so that happened. I'm on the mend. I'm recovering. Things are looking better. I feel better. Everything is okay. I'm going on holiday next week, so what more can you ask for? So that's that. So that's why I haven't really been talking much on YouTube, on Facebook, doing videos and such. Not that that's the excuse for the last 6 months, but at least the last month. We'll see what happens in the future. I'll keep people updated, and we'll go from there. So I hope everyone's alright, and I will see you all soon. Take it easy, everybody. Goodbye.